Welcome, friends. With the release of Renegades, us Shadebinders have been rescued from the depths of our suffering, as our only super is no longer the worst super in the game. That title finally rests with Night Stalker's Spectral Blades. To honor this occasion, I have compiled some exotic goods, and I am willing to part ways with them at a very generous price. Now, without further ado, let me give you the tour. I know that we can find something that speaks to you. But first, let's talk about what Shadebinder has to work with for those new to the art. Feel free to skip to this time if you just want to see the builds. For aspects, we first have Glacial Harvest, which creates stasis shards when you freeze targets, and makes picking up stasis shards grant frost armor and health. Since this is the only real survivability option we have, I pretty much always have it on. Then we have Ice Flare Bolts, which creates cold snap-like seekers whenever you shatter a target, allowing you to easily chain freezes. Frost Pulse, which makes your rifts create a freezing pulse around you, as well as granting you class ability energy when you freeze targets. And finally, Bleak Watcher, which lets you consume your grenade to create a slowing, stationary turret. For fragments, I pretty much always include Whisper of Fissures for improving the size and damage of shatters, Whisper of Rime for more DR from frost armor, and Whisper of Conduction to easily pick up our healing stasis shards. And the last fragment would usually go to Refraction for Frost Pulse builds, or Torment or Shards for grenade builds. Though the more I play with Stasis, the less I really feel that Fissures, Rime, or Conduction are truly necessary, so feel free to swap things out as you prefer. As a primary weapon hater and a double special believer, the Stasis exotic weapons are extremely disappointing, with the lone exception of Icebreaker, which causes an ignition whenever you shatter a frozen target with it. While many of these builds make great use of Icebreaker, it does not make or break the build, so you can use whichever exotic you prefer. Some important notes for build crafting. Cold Steel and the Praxic Blade's slowing effect apply after the damage, so you don't benefit from Refraction if you're one-shotting enemies. They also seem to be unable to apply slow to targets that were recently shattered for about 2.5 seconds. Since your Cold Snaps and Penumbral Blast can't really make orbs from firepower or hands-on, Elemental Charge on the legs is pretty important for keeping up armor charges. And some super tech, you can actually cancel the second burst of freezing projectiles if you hold right-click right after you start the attack. This practically doubles your total damage against single targets. So, now that you're caught up to speed with what we're working with, let's take a look at my catalog. First up is the classic Shadebinder build Osmiomancy gloves. This is the oldest exotic for Shadebinders, and it still holds up as the best when you just want to freeze everything. Osmiomancy gloves give you a second grenade charge and refunds grenade energy on cold snap hits. My build is pretty simple. For aspects, use Ice Flare Bolts and Glacial Harvest. For fragments, use Rime, Conduction, Fissures, and Torment. Get your grenade stat up to 100, and put the rest into super and/or weapons. I'd recommend Icebreaker to best capitalize on your freezes, but the weapon is not important. With this build, you just run around throwing cold snaps, repeatedly freezing and shattering everything as much as you like. And yes, you can use Osmiomancy on Prismatic. That would give you access to Devour to gain even more cold snaps, but bear in mind this will get you blacklisted from future Shadebinder meetings if you're spotted with that nonsense. And in any case, Shadebinder allows this build's survivability and grenade uptime to not require kills whatsoever, so one might argue that pure Shadebinder is actually better. Next we have an underutilized option in Vesper of Radius, an arc exotic that works on any subclass and synergizes nicely with Frost Pulse. Vesper of Radius makes your rifts create a damaging shockwave after cast, and also gives you up to 500% increased class ability regeneration while you're surrounded. With Frost Pulse, this means that your rifts freeze and automatically shatter enemies around you. For aspects, use Frost Pulse and Glacial Harvest. For fragments, use Whisper of Rime, Conduction, Fissures, and Refraction. Since you get tons of rifts, get your class all the way up to 200, and put the rest into super or weapons. I'd recommend using the Praxic Blade with the Swordmaster 4-piece set bonus for your weapon. Using Dynamo and Distribution gives you tons of super energy, so I'd recommend putting as many as you can on your helmet and class item respectively. This is definitely the best way to get tons of rifts on Warlock, and although Vesper Pulses don't do that much damage, when you stack multiple rifts on the same spot, the damage starts to add up. Next we have the newest model, Rime-coat Raiment. Released in Season of the Revenant, it offers the simplest gameplay loop imaginable. Rime-coat supercharges your Bleak Watchers, making them create stasis crystals periodically and gives you a stasis buddy of sorts that slows enemies that you shoot at while you're standing in the Bleak Watcher's domain. For aspects, obviously use Bleak Watcher and Glacial Harvest. For fragments, I opted to drop Vesper of Radius in favor of more grenade charging fragments, as this build lets you stay in a more comfortable position. I used Fissures, Conduction, Shards, and Torment. I highly recommend Icebreaker to capitalize on freezes, but Wicked Implement is a great option as well. And again, you can use this on Prismatic, but the pure Shadebinder version lets your Bleak Watcher uptime be completely independent of getting final blows, as Shards and Torment help you get your grenade back without kills, unlike Devour on Prismatic. I'd genuinely argue that in groups or high power delta activities, the pure Shadebinder version is better. Now this next one is my most exotic of goods, aged like fine wine over the years of repeated buffs to it and its related abilities. Ballidorse improves both Winter's Wrath and Frost Pulse in a number of ways. Firstly, it makes both abilities grant you and nearby allies max stacks of Frost Armor and Stasis Weapon Surges, 4 from Winter's Wrath and 2 from Frost Pulse. Additionally, granting these buffs to allies grants you Super Energy. And finally, Ballidorse further improves Winter's Wrath's damage, making it a serious competitor for one of the best roaming supers. My build uses Glacial Harvest with Frost Pulse, as well as Whisper of Fissures, Conduction, Rime, and Refraction. I use Icebreaker as my exotic weapon and pair Aurora Dawn with the Bushido 4-piece armor set bonus. Stats wise, I used a ton of font mods to get class, then super, then weapons as high as possible, each over 100. This is the most fun Shadebinder build in my opinion. It is hyper aggressive, massively increases your sword and super damage, and supports your team all at once. You can even modify the build to take a more defensive approach, using ranged weapons like Wicked Implement to more safely take advantage of the weapon surges. Now this build fits a lot better when Winter's Wrath was worthless, but it still has merit. Mantle of Battle Harmony grants you bonus super generation on weapon kills that match your super's damage type, and grants you 4 stacks of weapon surges on kills when your super is full. Ager's Scepter allows you to consume your super energy to overcharge the weapon, dealing increased damage and rapidly slowing enemies. My build uses Frost Pulse and Glacial Harvest, as well as Rime, Conduction, Fissures, and Refraction. You should maximize super up to 100, and then take weapons up to 200, and put the rest into class. This is a pretty fun build for just mowing down enemies with the Trace Rifle, but now that Winter's Wrath is better, it has less appeal to me. And that is everything in my collection. I hope you found what you were looking for. If you did, the only payment that I ask is that you engage with the video by dropping a like or a sub. Maybe with your patronage, we may finally be able to afford to stun Unstoppables again. And please, let me know if you have any wares of your own. Perhaps we can come to an agreement. Thanks for watching.